says that its request for safeguards against cheap frozen chicken meat imports will not raise prices beyond 10% and 15% from current prices. They are denying claims of increases of up to 50%. We spoke a little bit about this matter yesterday. It actually went before the International Trade Administration Commission of South Africa, where this matter was discussed. And again, let me welcome my guests to talk about it this morning. Let me start with David Wolpert, Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Meat Importers and Exporters, AME. Also, Kevin Lovell, Chief Executive Officer of the South African Poultry Association. You have also got JB Cronje. He's a researcher at Trade Law Center. A very good morning to you, JB.
I think I must start by saying that this is not a straightforward matter, and the chicken producers have applied for tariff increases, but it is not a given that they will receive those increases that they've asked for, because customs duty amendments are made within a legal and policy framework which consists basically of three components. First of all, we have national legislation which provides the legal basis for undertaking investigations and making recommendations regarding customs duty amendments to the Minister of Davies. Secondly, of course, tariff increases are made within a policy framework. South Africa has adopted a strategic approach to tariff setting, in which tariff determinations are decided on a case-by-case basis, dictated by the needs and constraints of each sector. Now, the rationale for this strategic approach to tariff setting is supposedly to support, as the farmer said, to support industrial development, employment, investment, and of course food security. And then the third component is then international trade agreements, to which South Africa is a party, and that includes the World Trade Organization, the European Union, SADC, and of course SACU. And it is important that customs duty amendments are in compliance with these international agreements signed by South Africa. Now, these agreements limit the policy space that government has with regard to duty amendments, and care should be taken that the World Trade Organization's ceiling rates are not exceeded. The WTO rates act then basically as a ceiling beyond which customs duty increases cannot go. Now, in this case, the producers requested a tariff increase from the existing 27% to the WTO ceiling rate of 82%. And the International Trade Administration Commission must now decide or find a balance between addressing the supply side constraints and competition issues and the effects of higher duties and their impact on food prices, especially for the poor. Now, a number of criteria must be considered by the Commission, which includes the domestic industry production capacity and potential, employment, investment, price differences between the domestic product and the imported product, demand and supply conditions, and the financial state of the domestic industry, including the profitability and return on investment ratios. So this is and after the Commission has completed its investigation, it must submit a recommendation to the Minister, and the Minister must then decide to accept the tariff increase or to reject it. Well, I think your other guests are maybe in a better position to inform the listeners what the impact on price increases will be, because I don't have the production data and production costs at hand. So maybe South Africa has a free trade agreement with the EU. Now, in terms of that agreement, duties cannot be raised or imposed on chicken imports from originating or imported from the EU. So, say for example, if the Minister decides to increase the tariffs as requested, those tariff increases cannot be applied on imports from the EU. What then can happen is if there are other measures the government can take, for example, then safeguard measures that can be imposed on agricultural imports from the EU. The real possibility then exists that this will happen because the International Trade Commission recently published guidelines for agricultural safeguard actions in terms of South Africa's agreement.
Well, there are two kinds of ways of measuring your competitiveness. The one is technically and the other one is financially. And the key here is that we can show technically, we do these analysis comparisons fairly often, that the last time we did it, we actually were better than the USA and slightly worse than Brazil. And the rankings will change each time you do it. But when it comes to converting feed into food, we're in the top tier of the world. When it comes to the cost of converting feed into food, we're not in the top tier. And the primary reason for that is that the price of maize and soya is set in South Africa on an import parity pricing model. So we as poultry farmers pay more for maize and more for soya or soya oil cake than farmers that we compete against. The amount varies, but the other thing to take into account is South Africa makes up 2%, slightly less actually, of global poultry production. These big gorillas that are exporting to us, they will always have economies of scale that we simply can't. A, they have bigger national populations, and B, they have huge export industries for different reasons. So we can't compete on a like-for-like basis. That's if it was like-for-like. But nearly all of the trade that comes to South Africa is not like-for-like. It is, the prices are distorted. They're either dumped or they're actually subsidized in various other indirect ways. The numbers get thrown around, but there was 404,000 tons of poultry imported last year. Of that, about 370,000 tons is chicken, and of that, about 130,000 tons is of chicken paste called MDM, which is essentially a waste product. So of the roughly 240,000 tons left, about 200,000 tons of that, roughly, is also undesirable product. It's either offal, carcasses, or leg quarters. And it's all highly edible and it's safe to eat. There's no problem with that. The issue is that the Europeans, the Americans in particular, and also the Brazilians, because they market followers, only want to eat the breasts. So all chickens have legs. So we're not dealing with a fair playing trading field.
Okay.
That's the message I'd like to get across. We are very good farmers. We just don't have the pricing structures for reasons of structure, that's maize prices, and for reasons of distorted agricultural markets that would enable us to compete.